did my talk. Now I can go home. So today we have Maurice, which I spoke to him last Sunday, and then I met him we talked during the week. So this whole month has been about simplifying. So share with me and the congregation as to what in your life's been going on that you've been simplifying.
Well,
Should be on. Yeah, it's on.
I've just remembered to breathe deeply and to do it often. Incidentally, I read a really interesting and informative article this past week about the importance of oxygen. That oxygen is probably the most important of the elements, and it went on to talk about the importance of breathing deeply. So I try to remember to do that often. And lastly, I must confess that each night before retiring, I make some notes about things that I'm grateful for. Things that usually one or two things that I'm grateful for. So those are the things that happened with me.
Well, when you finish up that little book on being grateful, I can give you another one because I have a few more.
Yeah.
Oh, so we'll do our affirmation, and then the congregation can repeat it after that.
Life is easy, and I prove it every day.
Life is easy, and I prove it every day. And now, this little light of mine.
It was so hard to choose which of the civil rights songs to do this morning, but this one had to sing. Do you enjoy sitting, or would you like to get?
Yes.
If you're able, please sing. Feel your legs go down into the ground. It's the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. It's the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. It's the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. All around the world, we're gonna
start dancing all the time. Yeah, feels good. Love it when the energy is high. So today is going to be a little bit different. I have Maurice, which is going to be sharing with me about history and about his heritage and about Martin Luther King. And you know, it was funny all week, and when I was working on the talk, and I was thinking about when Martin Luther marched in Washington. It was one of the biggest events in history. And I was in Boston, Massachusetts, and you know, I'd be watching the news with my parents and see the riots and stuff, and I really didn't understand. It reminded me of a story that was which growing up as a child, I didn't quite understand. But when I was going to school, I had my best girlfriend, and her name was Pamela, and she was a black girl. And we did study together, and we would play in the playground and stuff like that. And so one day I said, would you like to come to my house tomorrow and after school, and then we can play? I said, ask your parents. So the next day she came and we played, and we were outside and stuff like that, and we were going over some stuff for school, and my grandmother came home, and she looked at me and gave me this look, and I thought, oh, I know that look, I'm in trouble. And she said, you're going to have your little friend go home. And I didn't understand. And so she called her parents, and they picked her up. And after she left, my grandmother scolded me so brutally, you never bring a black person in this neighborhood. What will the neighbors think? And if you do that again, you'll be punished for a year. And I was like, oh, and I didn't understand. She was my friend, and I didn't see any different in color. I only saw her as my best friend. So that was sort of kind of the beginning, and then seeing, you know, everything that was going on in the world and how things had really come to a point of change. And it made me think, why is it so different? Why is it so different from religions, from Jews to Catholics to Christians to Protestants, whatever you want to call it, blacks, white? We're all one. But as a little girl, I didn't understand that. It took me years to really realize that there is no difference. There is no difference. So I came across the metaphysical of Martin Luther King and how the overcome of the moral order of racism occurred. Perhaps the closest thing we have in our lifetime to Paul overcoming the Roman Empire is the overcoming of institutional racism in the United States. The work is not finished, but we at least can honor the ideas and the good work that has got us on our way. Tomorrow we honor the life and the work of Martin Luther King. So if you take a few minutes and know that you are sitting quietly in meditation, that God is speaking to you. So I ask you to close your eyes. And it may be that God is speaking to you as God had done so for eternity. In that still small voice. And it may be that God is speaking to you through a great prophet, as was done in ancient times. So if so, perhaps in this moment, sitting in front of you, toe to toe, knee to knee, is Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He may be reaching towards you, holding your hand, looking you directly in the eye. Perhaps he is saying to you, like anybody, I would have liked to have lived a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just wanted to do God's will. And he allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I looked over and I saw the promised land. I want you to know that we as people will get to the promised land. Don't worry about anything. Don't worry about any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. This is our hope, and this is our faith. And with this faith, we are able to he out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. And with this faith, we are able to transform the discord of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. And with this faith, we are able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we are all one and we are free. Amen. So how is it that Dr. King was able to lead us 50 years ago along the path to freedom, to lead us in becoming a better person? How did he know when to push and when to pull back? What gave him his understanding and love? And I believe it was because God was personal in his life. This is the testimony of all true prophets. It is the testimony of all true mystic and is the testimony of those who have placed their will at the service of the I Am. It goes like this. When we know that God is present, then there is always a perfect and elegant solution to all life's problem. Know that the Emperor is not Lord, that Christ is our Lord. I do not know what will happen next, but I do know the teaching we have been given by St. Paul, by the Fillmores, and Martin Luther King. Know that God is speaking to us today, in this moment, and each and every day. So it's our will to choose how we want to live on this earth. It's our choice to have the heart of brotherly love, of sister love. To see those that are poor and have less than we have. We can share a part of us, if not in form, but we can do it by sending them love and wishing them well on their path. So right now, Maurice is going to come over and he's going to share from his heart and his notes who and what he has come from in this lovely earth, okay? And I'm looking forward to it, the history.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reverend Linda. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some information with you, some of my background. By the way, I was born in a small village of Fargo, Arkansas. That's the northeastern part of Arkansas. My grandfather was actually one of the founders of that village. Incidentally, my grandfather was born in 1860, which was 5 years before slavery was made illegal in America. And Arkansas, during those years, was a kind of a farming state. Lots of cotton and corn that was grown there. So as a young boy, I did a lot of chopping cotton in the summer and picking cotton in the fall. And during later years, we finally moved to the western part of Texas. So basically my growing up years, about the first 18 years of my life, were was in the southern part of America. With that, I think I will share with you some notes that I've written in the last couple days as I've been thinking about this talk. I say here, by way of American history, the civil rights movement began in the 1950s and it lasted for about 20 years. Dr. Martin Luther King was one of the main participants, as we all know. in 1955, an African-American woman by the name of Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat and moved to the back of a public bus in Montgomery, Alabama. This led to the Montgomery bus boycott, and Dr. King played a key role in organizing this historic event. Now, especially in the South, Black Americans experienced considerable injustice and unloving treatment. It was part of a way of life that had existed since the beginning of the slave trade in the 1600s. Although there was segregation and poorer living conditions in the Black community, when I was growing up, I was exposed mostly to positive thinking about life in general. My parents, my school teachers, and most people in my neighborhood stressed the importance of being responsible, loving, and helpful to others. I really appreciate the fact that they avoided a lot of the talk referring to Black people as quote-unquote victims of so-called racial discrimination. When I think back on it, my parents were problem solvers, and they moved forward each day in a positive manner without engaging in negative talk. For that, I am grateful. Dr. King was also a positive thinker and doer, as we all know. Otherwise, he would not have become the prominent leader that he became. As we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King, we remember a man who also brought hope and healing to our nation. He brought hope and healing to our nation. He championed nonviolent and peaceful protesting and received the Nobel Prize for the courage he demonstrated in spreading information about equality, truth, and forgiveness. A couple of major accomplishments during the Civil Rights era include signing into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, both of which were signed by President Lyndon Johnson. The words and the selfless action, the words and selfless action of Dr. King helps us all, even to this day, to remember that we are not separate, but that we are one. Yes, one people, one race, one in spirit, one in spirit. You know, there are a number of memorable quotes that Dr. King gave, and I'd like to share a few of them with us here. The first one goes like this. It says, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Another one is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." A threat to justice everywhere. "Forgiving is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude." Forgiving is not an occasional act. It's a constant attitude. "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. And another quote that he made was, we may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. And the final one is, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. We can all be deeply grateful for the loving compassion of Dr. King. His speeches continue to help people live with more peace and love in their hearts. More peace and love in their hearts. So in closing, as we acknowledge and respect the work of this highly celebrated man, let us go forth and be in the present. That is, in the now. Because there is only the present. And finally, I would like us to sing the first verse of the Black National Anthem. I'm going to sing it first, so we'll kind of have the sound of it, and then if you would join me after that. But I'll start out singing. I'll sing it first. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. So if you would join me now. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Want to do it again? One more time?
One more time.
Got it? Go ahead.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Can I just one final note.
Go ahead.
Testing. One final note is that Dr. Martin Luther King made his transition from this life the day of my 27th birthday. So it's a day that I will remember for a long time. Thank you very much. April 4th of 1968. April 4th, 1968. That was my 27th birthday and the same day that Martin Luther King made his transition from this life. At that time, you see, I was attending, I think, the Methodist Church in Philadelphia. That's where we lived. My wife and I lived at that time. And I was upstairs tutoring some students in math, and someone came and knocked on my door, and the gentleman says, Morris, you're not going to like what I'm about to tell you. And then that's when he shared with me that, you know, Martin Luther King had been assassinated. Okay, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. You know, I thought it would be very special today to have him share some of the history and part of his life. You know, it's just a reminder that we're all one. Just sometimes we're on different paths, but we're all equal. And the beautiful thing about living in the United States is we have freedom of speech. That's one thing that to me is very important. We all have a voice. So with that, we have special music.